In this video, I want to introduce you to the automation section within your account. So to access the automation section from the dashboard when you log in from the left-hand navigation bar, we're going to go to right underneath marketing automation. So automations, also known in your account as workflows, are basically just kind of like a sequence of steps that happen or a unique formula to your business. So take, for example, if somebody fills out a form on your website, or if somebody calls your business, or if somebody pays an invoice, or if somebody comments on one of your social media posts, that is considered a trigger. There's so many different trigger options within your account to create kind of like a recipe or a formula within the automation section. So let me show you an example of what is possible within the automation section within your account. So when you land on the workflow or the automation section within your account, to create a workflow, you're going to click the create workflow button located at the very top right of the screen. And then you can select a recipe. So these are pre-designed recipes, formulas, or you can start from scratch. So in this example, I'm going to start from scratch. And at the very top, you can name this workflow, because the cool thing about this is that you can manually add anybody. For hypothetical, you go to a networking event and you meet somebody and you want to add them to a specific nurture sequence or a specific automation or workflow. So you have to name it in order to know how to identify that specific automation. So in this example, we're going to call this an automation for when somebody fills out a form. And now I want to walk you through the interface and explain what some of the tabs on this page mean and what they do. So starting from the very far left of the screen, we see stats view. So if you toggle that on, you'll be able to, once you have your automation built out, anytime somebody is entered into this automation or workflow, you'll be able to see the stats, meaning did they click a button? Are they out of the workflow? Did they remove themselves from the workflow? Or what step of the automation are they in? So that is how you see the stats of that specific automation. And then at the very top, we have 4 tabs that we can toggle back and forth from. The very first one is the builder. That's where we build our automation. The next one is settings. That's where we can configure some of the unique workflow settings. So for example, allow re-entry means, do I want somebody to enter this workflow more than once? Hypothetical. Somebody fills out a newsletter form. More than likely, you're not going to want them to enter that workflow more than once, because once they join your newsletter, they're in your newsletter list. But one example of allow re-entry could be scheduling an appointment on your services calendar. More than likely, you want that customer to schedule more than one appointment, so you will allow re-entry for that situation. Stop on response basically means if somebody responds. So within your workflow, you can set up automation sequences like automated text or automated email. If you want that workflow to stop when somebody responds to an email or responds to a text message, you would toggle on stop on response. Below that, we have communication. So you can select a specific time zone, the time window. So for example, if you want these automations to only trigger during, say, work hours 9 to 5, you can toggle this on and you can specify the exact time frame and days that you want this automation to play out. So if somebody joins your newsletter, right away they'll receive a confirmation. But let's say hypothetical, you don't want them to receive the very first email within that sequence until maybe Monday at 9 a.m. when you know they're going to be in the office. So you can configure that time window right in this area. And then below that, you can configure the sender details. So the from name can be the company name or a specific team member. From email can be the main company email or a specific team member email. And then below that, the conversations configuration is marked as red. So as it reads, toggle this on if you want the conversations that this workflow will interact with to be marked as red. So one example of that, if somebody joins a newsletter, meaning they complete the newsletter form, they hit submit. If they also, for example, join the text list, they're going to reply Y in order to confirm that they want to receive text messages. So that response will show up in the conversation feed. But if you don't want that, I'm responding Y to confirm that I want to be part of your SMS list to show up as an unread message, this is where you will go to mark it as red for those specific situations. So then next to settings at the very top, we have enrollment history. So this is where you can see who is enrolled inside of this workflow. And then the execution logs is where you see what stage of that automation or workflow that unique contact is in. So let's go back to the builder. And then at the very top right of the screen, we have test workflow. So you can test out your workflow once you finish building it, and then draft and publish. So once you toggle on publish, that means this workflow is now live. And then you would click the save button in order to save the changes made to your your automation or your workflow. So now let's start building out this workflow. But one thing I do want to mention before we start this process is that not every workflow requires a trigger in order to activate it. Like I said before, you can manually add any specific contact to any workflow without having a preset trigger, meaning a form submitted or a text response. You could literally just add someone to an automation. But in this example, because we want this to be a form was submitted, we're gonna click the add new trigger. And then you'll notice from the right side of the screen, a window pops up. And I'm going to explain this window really quickly. So this is a list of the available triggers as of today, meaning the thing that happened that started this automation. So obviously you can see we have an entire list of triggers that we can select from, but because we want this to be, in this example, a form was submitted, we can simply type in these search triggers, form, and then you see at the very top events, we have form submitted. So we're going to click on that. And then we can even name this. Workflow trigger name is where we can ID what this specific trigger is. So we can say newsletter form submitted. And then we're going to click the add filter. We're going to click the drop down to select form is. So this is where we're going to ID and select which specific form we want to use in this automation. So then from the drop down where it reads, please select forms, we're going to select newsletter form. And then once we selected the form, at the very bottom right of the screen, we're going to click save trigger. So now we have our trigger saved. And one thing I like to do after every single trigger or action step that I add to a workflow is at the very top right, click the save button. Just in case the internet goes out or something happens, you don't want to have to start all over from scratch. So from every single step that I add to an automation, I always click the save button. So let's say somebody submits the newsletter form and we want them to maybe receive an email. So we're going to click the plus button right underneath the trigger step. And now the action window pops up. So remember, the very first step was the trigger. So you saw the trigger window pop up. And then we have the action window. So the trigger is the thing that started the automation, and the actions are the steps of the sequence that happen. So the very first action that we want to take place is we want our contact to receive an email. So we're gonna say, type in the search bar, email, send email. And then in the action name field, we can say email sent to contact. And then from the from name field, it could be either the name of the company or it could be a specific contact. And then you'll see this little tag icon. So you can actually set custom values. And remember, custom values are just predefined information of your business. So you can click the little tag and you can say, I want the custom value to be the brand name of the company. So that way you don't have to type it in. It will just pull from your custom values within the settings section what you have predefined as that specific information tag. And then the from email is this coming from the accounting department? Is this coming from the support team? Is this coming from the main email? So info at your company name. So in this example, we're just going to say info at rocepez.com. And then in the subject field is where we're going to put the subject of the email. So this can say something like, thank you for joining our newsletter. So below the subject line field, we have templates. So if you already designed an email template within the emails template section, you can click the drop down and select the specific email template that you already designed to use in this automation. But in this example, we are starting from scratch. So we're going to type out our email. So let's say in this email, we're going to say, hello, first name, thank you for joining our newsletter. Here's what you can expect to receive from our newsletter. So we're going to type out hello, and then we're going to set contact first name. Let me show you how to do that. We're going to type out hello, and then again, the little tag for the custom values, we're going to click that. We're going to go to the very top and select contact and put in either full name or first name. I like to put first name. So that'll pull the name of the contact that joined the newsletter. Say, for example, Kevin. Hello, Kevin. Thank you for joining our newsletter. So it's going to pull the information that contact populated within that form. So then below that, we'll type out our message. And now keep in mind, this is just a simple text email. We can have an entire email design created within the email templates with images, headers, logos, buttons, all of that. But I'm just showing you an example of how to create a simple from scratch email within the automation section. So we have hello, first name, thank you for joining our newsletter. And then we'll just wrap it with our company name and email. And then once we have that information populated, you see right at the very bottom, we can test the email. So we can send a test to ourselves to see what the email looks like. So you would just put your email in here and then click the send test mail button to the right. And then you can see if it looks good, you can save it and move on to the next step. So to save this action, we're going to click the blue save action button at the very bottom right of the screen, and your very first action has been saved. So now let's say when somebody fills out the newsletter form, we want them to receive an email, but then we also want to send a text message. So we're going to click the plus button again, and then we're going to type in SMS. And then you'll see SMS pops up at the very top. And then we can also give a name to the action step. We can say SMS sent to contact. And then below the action step field, we have templates where if we created a template for this, we can select from the dropdown as well. But in this example, we're just going to create from scratch. So we can put something like, hello, first name. Thank you for joining our newsletter. And then you can also test this SMS by adding your phone number and then clicking the send test SMS to see what the SMS looks like. And then once you finish that action, you're going to click the save action button at the very bottom right of the screen. And now one last step I like to do for every automation, just to make sure that this contact was removed after they finish all the steps from the workflow. I like to add a remove from workflow. So I'm going to click the button again, and then I'm going to type out remove, and then select remove from workflow. And I like to put current workflow. So I'm going to click the save action. Once I finish designing this test automation, at the very top, I'm going to toggle on to publish, and then I'm going to click save. And we have our very first automation built out and saved. So once people start filling out this form and entering into this workflow automation, you'll be able to come back to the automation by going to the automation tab and then finding your automation. So right here we have our form test, and then we'll be able to go to the very top left of the screen, toggle on stats view, and then we'll be able to see now you have all the different options that you can view for the stats. We have delivered, open, clicked, replied, bounced. So that is how you create a simple automation within the automation section within your account. Let me know if you have any questions.